you want to start?
Yeah. Whereabouts were you born?
Well, I was born in the Mothers Hospital on Lower Clapton Road, 1972. Lived in Hackney on and off all my life. Seen it change.
Have you ever lived outside of Hackney?
Yeah, I've lived in Colwyn Bay, North Wales for a while. Lived in Chelmsford, Essex. And at short periods I've lived in Haringey or Islington, but most of it's been Hackney.
And whereabouts in Hackney did you grow up as a child? You were born in my mother's hospital, and where were you living when you were a small child?
I first lived in Downs Park Road, just along from Hackney Downs, where I now work. Most of my life was spent in Stamford Hill. My dad was from Trinidad. His mother was half Portuguese, half black. His father was apparently from Barbados, but wasn't the man that his mother was married to. It was her best friend's husband. My mother's from Tottenham, or was from Tottenham. Her parents were born in Tottenham. My nan's father was made an invalid at the time of depression and committed suicide in the River Lee because there was no poor married families at that time. But if his wife was made a widow, she'd receive some poor relief. So he jumped in between a barge and the bank in the River Lee near Leabridge Road and was crushed to death. That was suicide. I think, yeah, 1929, 1930, height of the depression. There were my granddad's family were bakers in Tottenham. I think there was at least 2-3 generations before him that were bakers, and most of the women were domestic servants. Yeah, his mother was French. So, like the United Nations, all in one family. Bombing trains was sending a message out to the rest of London and beyond that we exist, we are here, this is what we do, this is who we are. You know, even if it was just a tag or a throw up, which is just like bubble letters, that would go through London. People that you probably would never meet would see that and know where it had come from and that you existed in that certain place. You know, a lot of graffiti writers, even in the 80s, were from the suburbs, middle class white boys predominantly, who would get good allowances, buy their spray paint rather than nick it, and they'd come to London to meet all these scraggly, you know, rough urban youth, but we had one thing in common. And they'd say, oh, we saw your tags on such and such a train. We know that you're from this area because we've seen your tags. Yeah, it was like an early form of the internet. You knew which writer, where they were from what trains they'd hit, what line, the Metropolitan line, or the Central line, or the Piccadilly. And even before you met them, you knew where they were from. You knew their style. And you'd hear stories. You'd go to Moorgate. There was a bench at Moorgate on the Hammersmith and City line, and it was called the Writers' Bench. And you could go there any day of the week, and there'd be someone, if there was a young guy sat there between the ages of 14 and 20, you knew he was a graffiti writer. So you'd stop and talk and get to know him. And it was a good way to meet people. And it was our 15 minutes of fame. Especially if one of your tags appeared on a TV programme or on the news or that, it was even better. Your kudos went sky high. Right, well, I've been bunking up for most of my GCSEs, so I wasn't going to do that well. My dad had the fantastic idea of getting me to go and work with him. So I did that, earning £70 a week.
Doing what?
He was a welder. They made tipper trucks, the backs for tipper trucks, hydraulic lifting and that. And I was just generally a dog's body for a few months. Left there, had a couple of other jobs that I couldn't stick at. University College London, I was a carpenter. Then I worked for Hawker Siddeley Power Transformers as an apprentice in Forest Road. Then just before I was 18 I joined the army.
And how long were you in the army for?
6 months. 2 months spent in MCTC in Colchester, which is the army prison, for being naughty. Then after that, I worked in a friend's shop. The friend that I'm helping out now, I worked in his shop for a couple of years. Then I was lucky, I got a job in Benson and Hedges, Old Bond Street, as a cigar retailer. Within a year I've been promoted to Harrods. I was running a cigar bar in Harrods, which I did for about 15 months. And I left that in 2000. And then I was unemployed for about a year and a half. I worked for a month as a manager in Toys R Us, just before Christmas, and it's a nightmare. And then in 2003, I got a part-time job for Hackney Council as a park ranger in Hackney Downs, and I've been there ever since, for my sins. In September 2000, my mother-in-law persuaded me to phone up Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I answered the question. 5 days later they phoned back. They asked me another question. I answered that. I got it right. And the following week I appeared on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the 100th show. And I won 64,000. And I spent it as quick as I won it, I spent it.